Hi, hello, everyone. Welcome to our SportsTech radar. This is Ron, and I am going to walk you through over the next 1 hour or so our Global SportsTech VC Report 2022. Now, you must be wondering, usually I have another partner in crime, Benjamin, who is here with me when we do these presentations. But no, Ben is currently on safari. Yes, he has started his year-end holidays quite early. Ben is off in Cape Town, I believe, or somewhere around Cape Town. And yeah, is on a safari. He does not have time for us, unfortunately. Hello, Ben. I hope you might at least tune in, but probably not. Hi to Ashley. Hi to Alexander. Hi, everyone who has joined in from wherever you are. I am still in Berlin in my cool co-working space, which looks like an underground facility, as you do in Berlin. Ben, unfortunately, does not have any images to show us about where he is at on his safari. I don't know what animals he's seeing. Inyo, hi to you. Where is everybody from? Drop me a message in the chat. Tell me where you're joining from. We have, I think, about a couple hundred people who signed up. Hey, Rishabh, India represent. We have a couple hundred people who've signed up. Unfortunately, on this platform, so I have to say we're trying a new platform, Restream. It's not super new. We have been streaming on Restream every week. We do a Sports Tech Weekly show, which is like a news show every week. So we've been using this a while, but it's not the same functionality as the tools that we've used in the past. Hey, Faye is here. Hi, Faye. Also from Berlin, Alexander from Germany, people from Dubai, lots more from India. Anyway, so Smith coming in from NYC. We just had a call before this. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is that I don't know how many people are watching across all platforms. I get only the number on one. So the only way I know you're here is if you drop me a message in the chat. So please say hi. That's number one. Number two, also, I'm going to try to keep this tight and keep this within an hour, lesser time if possible. So drop me questions. We'll try to make this as interactive. And then let's get out of here and go back to the World Cup, which is what Jonalyn, I think I said that right. She's from LA and she's a Sports Tech platform co-founder, and she is sharing her screen with the World Cup. I think the game is to kick off in half an hour. So I will try to keep you posted on what happens with the game. Croatia, Belgium, who are you supporting? Yeah, I'm always with Croatia, and Canada, Morocco, of course. So we'll try to give you game updates. All right, we've given it a few minutes for people to trickle in. Andres from Latvia, hello. And this is what we're here to discuss. I'm going to walk you through, yeah, exactly. Thanks, Ashley. 30 minutes, I know. I'm counting it down myself. I'm going to walk you through the VC report. I'm going to talk about all the, let's say, the funding numbers over the years, the top cities, the top countries, the top funded companies, all the stuff that you're used to expecting from us. Also throw in the big trends that we've seen in 2022, and then end with the investor stuff, right? Who are the most active investors? So, all right, guys, everyone is here live from Quebec. We've got, yeah, more people trickling in. Love it. All right, feel free to drop me messages in the chat. I don't have a separate questions tab or anything. Like I said, this platform is a little more limited, but it goes out to wider audiences by allowing us to stream directly on LinkedIn and YouTube. So hopefully that brings in more people. Okay, I'm going to kick this off. This is the report we're talking about. All our data is from the 31st of October, so super recent. Shout out to the team, to Rishabh, to Vishnu, to Kimberly, to Ryan, who is our design god. Everything that looks nice on our reports, the way we present it, comes from him. So thanks, Ryan. And of course, to the good man, Ben, who is not here today. And also, I have to give a shout out to our partners, Indigo Sports Tech, who are one of the biggest and let's say oldest VC funds from Europe. I would recommend that if anybody watching this, if you can put it to full screen, you'll probably be able to see the data and points a bit better. I don't know how it appears for you in whatever view you're watching it, because the numbers and graphics, I tried to make them as big as I could on the slide, but there are smaller places. So for example, if you can see their portfolio clearly, companies like Horizon, Oliver, Strafer from Germany. Yeah, anyway, go check them out, Indigo Sports Tech, if you are looking to raise some money. I mentioned before, we use this platform, Restream, for another show that we do, which is also why I'm doing this today. 3:30 to 4:30 is this session. At 5 o'clock, I will go live with our weekly shows, STX Weekly, where basically Ben and I, again, not Ben today, but Ben and I cover the top news from the world of sports tech. Sports tech, finance, investment, all that good stuff is covered here weekly. So tune in for that. You can subscribe to that on our pages. Okay, enough of the intros. Let's go over what we're going to talk about. Lots of good data, as I said. We're going to break down the numbers from a bunch of different perspectives. Number two, we're going to talk about key trends. And number three, the investor ecosystem. Who are the people that are funding, excuse me, that are funding all this money? That is, where is it coming from? All the money that is coming into sports tech, where is it coming from? I'm also going to throw in a few slides which are not in the free version that most of you have downloaded. Some of you have got the paid version, appreciate it. We can always do with the support, but I will show you a couple of slides which are in the paid version of the report. So you might find some new information in this session. All right, let's kick this off with what happened in 2022. Well, if you remember, if you've seen last year's report, 2021 was a big year for sports tech. Yeah, you see that tall pillar, number 4 from the left, that's 2021, $11.7 billion invested in sports tech, more than the previous 3 years combined, 3.5 years almost. So 21 was a big breakout year. Post-pandemic, we saw investment numbers really fly. I've got some epic disturbance happening here. Sorry about that. My co-working space can get noisy. But anyway, coming to 2022, that figure already crossed 7 billion and is on track to touch 10 billion this year. So a huge number. Again, super solid follow-up from last year. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, you will see the average ticket size. In 2018, 19, and 20, the number was around the 10 million mark. In 21, that figure jumped to $20 million was the average ticket size for sports tech investment rounds. In 2022, that number is also 22. Coincidentally, completely, of course. The median number also increased. So what we've seen is that 22 is a great follow-up to what we saw in 21 as a big investment year. All right. And that trend is continuing. There's lots of positive movement in sports tech, shall we say. Where is this investment going? Which are the top countries that it goes to? As always, the US is number one. Quite a few people in our audience are here from the US. The US tops in 2022, but look at the margin. You see, US, out of the 7.2 billion in 2022, the US contributes 4.6 billion, 60% of the funding, 60 change percent of the investment in sports tech comes from the United States in 2022. The next country is Hong Kong at 470 million. And we'll get into the details, but Hong Kong also is home to Animoca Brands, which is not purely a sports tech company. They do a lot of things. So when you look at it at an aggregate, the US is 10 times bigger than the next highest country in 2022. And the next highest country, even if you take Germany over Hong Kong, is concentrated in just one or two companies. The US is much wider distribution in terms of the number of companies that are raising big rounds. This is important. The other thing I want to highlight is on the chart on the left is India gained another position to jump into number 2 spot overall over the last 5 years and number 4 in 2022. Shout out to everybody from India who's watching, including our own team. It's something that I'm always very proud of, to see the sports tech market develop in such a big, strong way in India. You got those 1.4, 1.5 billion people behind sports. If we can get them more interested, think about the potential. If you go lower down the list, you will see within Europe, it is the traditional powerhouses, Germany, UK, and France, who are in 5, 6, and 7. In the 5-year list, in the 22 list, they are in 3 and 6. France doesn't make it into the top 10. The only let's say, country that we always consider in the rest of world analysis, which is non-European, non-American, or not from Asia Pacific, is Brazil. Brazil is a market basically which covers South America and Africa. Brazil is still the biggest country for sports tech in the non-three big markets. And this is something that we're going to actually explore a bit more next year. Sneak peek for people who are here. You might see an interesting content piece from us with some good partners about this fast growing market. Okay, we're done with the countries. What about the cities? Well, New York. It's all about New York. New York is the biggest sports tech city in the world, certainly for funding a number of startups. Except in 22, there is only Jacksonville which competes and pushes the New York to number 2 spot. But Jacksonville is a, let's say, I won't say one hit wonder, but there is one company which is based in Jacksonville which props it up on every list, and that is Fanatics, the biggest sports tech company out there. And we're going to get into details about Fanatics later on in the section. They keep raising big money, might even become the first $100 billion company in sports tech. That is their goal um, that they are trying to achieve. Very, very interesting company doing a bunch of different things. Coming back to the cities list, like I said, Jacksonville is in number 1, but New York is still the sports tech capital. You get a lot of West Coast cities in the US, LA, Santa Monica, they consistently appear high up on the list. Logan is another one which is on this list because of one big funding round. Berlin, my current home, is also on this list, but a lot of that comes from one big funding round, which was one football. The other big powerhouses for sports tech is actually this column. The font color is a bit light, so I hope you can see it. It's the city rank by number of startups. So not just the investment, but how many startups there are in that city. And over there, the number 1 position goes to London, UK capital, a major hub for startups. Number 2 is New York. Number 3, SF. So you see the geographical split, Europe base, East Coast base, or West Coast base. Number 4, LA. And then you have a couple of other European cities. Paris comes in. Bangalore is our hometown, where I'm originally from, just outside the top 10. Okay, so that's talking about cities. Let's go into sectors. As always, I'm going to say this again. Javier asks, where is Logan? Logan is in the US. Javier, which part of the US? Somebody else in the chat will have to help him out. Logan is home to one company. It's a fitness company called iFit, and they consistently raise big funding rounds, which is why Logan is on there. Okay, coming to the sectors. Yeah, this year we introduced a new chart. Actually, I really like this one, which shows you the investment breakup for by sector for the last 5 years, and also only in 2022. The reason this, I think, is relevant is because, especially look at fan experiences. Yeah, you look at the investment amount for the last 5 years, which is 7 billion. 3 billion has come only in 2022. We've been saying this a lot. 2022 is the year of the fan. That is our epithet for this investment year. There has been so much happening in the fan experience space. Call it a post-pandemic push or something else, but it's clear that sports tech investors, startups, everybody, especially rights holders, are looking at solutions in the fan space. Logan is in Utah. Thank you, Michael, for that geography lesson. Javier, your question answered in the chat. Yeah, coming back to this, content platforms, we've seen companies like OneFootball raise significant sums of money. Fantasy sports and betting, that continues to drive investment, especially with the legalization in the US. We've seen movements to legalization in Brazil, in Japan. So fantasy sports and betting is another area that is going to continue to grow, but anything, moral of the story is anything related to fans, this is what investors are gravitating towards. And this is another breakup of that, showing that chart about how, let's say, which of these subsectors are, how they're growing compared to the previous 12 months. Now you'll see most of these circles are red, which are showing decline, but that's also because we saw in slide number 1, 2021 was a huge year, right? 21, we almost touched $12 billion. In 22, we are on track to touch 10. So straight away a 20% reduction, which is why for most sectors, it should be maybe down 20%. But as always, that's not the case. There are three sectors here: activity, for activity, hardware, before or after activity, and content platforms, which are in that window. But the others, and that's where you see the shift. Fantasy sports and betting has been the fastest growing, more for over 40%, which shows that companies in this segment, they might not be the highest gaining by total amount, the highest that was invested, but the fastest growing. That's important to note. Fan experiences, even in a down year, it was already a huge base last year, but continues to grow even this year by 10%. The biggest loser, the sector that fell away the most, was organizations and venues, B2B solutions in sports tech, which are, let's say, internally facing. When I say internally facing for a B2B organization, these are team management solutions, venue management solutions, like competition management, stuff like that. Those applications is what we consider an organization and venues. And for activity software, this is another one which has a reduction of over 50%. That, I think you can talk a lot about the commoditization rather, that's a better word, of AI and ML as these terms become more commonly used and are just widely available in every software and every website that you go to. It's based on AI and ML or computer vision or something of that sort. The differentiation between applications becomes harder, and therefore maybe it's not as attractive to investors. For activity hardware has been, let's say, more attractive than for activity software. Here's an extract from the Pro version. Again, you'll have to zoom in on the slide to take a better look. But what we do is we highlight each of the top 5 funded companies in each of those subsectors, divided by solutions for athletes, for fans, for executives, people that are familiar with our framework. Yeah, you get a list of the most funded companies for each subsector. Might be relevant if you're looking for big names, if you're trying to go in deeper. This is a Pro version slide, and this is another Pro version slide. Remember, I talked about rest of the world. I talked about our ecosystem overviews that we do at the start of every year, which is the European Sports Tech Report, the North American Sports Tech Report, and the Asia Pacific Sports Tech Report, right? What we've done in our Pro version, we give you a breakdown like this for each of those regions, for investment, for funding by sector, which are B2C, consumer, or B2B facing solutions, to top countries and top companies. So I wanted to highlight just this one slide. We have it for all the regions in the Pro report. I wanted to highlight this slide just to show you the difference. The rest of the world is basically Brazil right now. We don't have too many other, let's say, African countries. Egypt is on there, but everything else is South American based. You have 1 or 2 companies that raise investment. That said, I should point out that there are quite a few initiatives that we're seeing in Chile, in Argentina, In South America, there seems to be a movement towards sports tech, which I'm curious to explore. Maybe next year, as I mentioned already, we will do something in this space. All right, moving along. 20 minutes in. How everybody's doing? Let me know in the chat if you have any questions, as always. And like I said, I like to hear from you guys. So why not drop me a line? I'll keep this going with top companies by funding. We've got the all-time list, the top 10, and we've got the list only for 2022. And if you look at the list for 2022 alone, again, look at the companies that are on here. iFit, which is the Logan-based company, is a fitness play. Therabody is also a fitness device, but a lot of the others are fan-based solutions. Fanatics, which of course started in e-commerce, but has moved on to digital collectibles. They own Candy Digital, even though it's a separate company, but that is their NFT slash Web3 play. They acquired Tops, which is their digital collectibles. They also have a sports book that they dropped. So Fanatics is expanding in a big way. This 1.5 billion that they raised was at a valuation of $27 billion. And in the article, I believe it's an article in I think MSN.com or somewhere, or might have been CNBC, sorry, that the founder was quoted as saying that Fanatics' goal is to hit $100 billion valuation, and they hope to achieve that in the next 5 years or so. So this is a company that is driving at the forefront of sports tech. And man, I think we are all for it. If there it becomes that big $100 billion company at the front of sports tech, it gives encouragement to everybody else in the ecosystem. Who are the other big names? One Football right here in Berlin. I mentioned them. They have also invested a lot of that money, the 300 million, into their Web3 NFT platform called IRA. SeatGeek is investing in Web3 in a big way. Loot Mogul is a metaverse, an athlete-led metaverse. That's how they position themselves. Autograph, Tom Brady's NFT venture. So we keep talking, we've heard a lot about Web3 and NFTs, and especially the term NFTs has now almost become a bit of a bad word. Um, a lot of recent launches we have seen are not using the term NFTs in their launches anymore. Um, Maybe for good reason as well. It was a bit faddish. It has negative connotations. It's purely speculative. All of these things, but Web3 technology is being invested in a big way. What do I mean when I say Web3? Blockchain based. Let's simplify language. Things that are built on chain where um, the final interface might be off chain, but the underlying tech is built on chain. There are many people in this chat, I'm sure, who can explain it better than me. But this is an area that sports continues to invest in. And we are working on a Web3 and sports report. I was due to publish it next week, in fact, but we've decided to push it back to early next year, where we will explore a lot of these themes about what is happening in the Web3 space, talking about NFTs, talking about fan tokens, talking about DAOs and the interesting forms of ownerships that exist today, and talking about what a sports metaverse looks like, whether it's interoperable or not. But that's for next year. Coming back to 22, like I said, a lot of the technology that you see invested, a lot of these companies, the big ones, are fan facing. And remember that theme, that's super important. In terms of acquisitions and M&A activity, betting is a big one. We saw BetCity, OpenBet. OpenBet actually is a renegotiated deal. It was published last year where Endeavor was due to acquire OpenBet for $1.2 billion. Endeavor seems like they benefited from delaying that deal for lots of reasons. It might that went on behind the scenes, but this deal was renegotiated for 800 million in 22. The one that I like, the one that I always want to highlight, is The Athletic, which was acquired by New York Times. This is a company that produces fantastic content, and Yeah, I'm a fan. I encourage everybody else to read content from The Athletic. Top switches acquired by Fanatics already mentioned, more betting companies, Fitso, one Indian acquisition by CureFit. Other notable acquisitions, Sony recently acquired Beyond Sports, Withings recently acquired 8Fit, let's say One Football invested in Gloria, which is a women's football company. I should mention Sony acquiring Beyond Sports. For anybody who doesn't know, Beyond Sports is a media production innovator, very, very cool company. They do animated live animation renderings of sports, so you can watch the NFL in a cartoon format, in a blocky format, some very interesting stuff. So we saw a lot of consolidation activity in 2022. This is one of my favorite slides. This is the Sports Tech Unicorn slide. We have now 38 unicorns in Sports Tech as per our estimation, and there are some which are, let's say, Soonicorns, which have raised significant amounts of money, nearing $1 billion even, but we could not find an official source to call them a unicorn. The one I want to highlight over here is the spread, and you don't even need numbers. You can see it just from the map. The concentration is all to the left, all in the US. Europe, though, now has a few more. Last year, we had just one. This year, we got Genius Sports, One Football, Signa Sports, which went public in the US, Sorare, and of course, now quite a few in India as well. But this Sports Tech Unicorns map is growing consistently. Another slide from the pro version of this report of where these unicorns are coming from. 17 of the 38 from the US, so more than half. China with 7, but they've not added any to that list. India with 4, they added a few. Germany did as well, and a bunch of other countries with just 1. And here's our roundup of Soonicorns. These are either listed companies. Actually, I shouldn't call them Soonicorns, sorry. These are listed companies which are not unicorn status. Some of them, like Slingerbag, are maybe having a tough time of things. Others, let's see which way they go. Yeah, this is the list of how many new unicorns were added each year. All right, I've mentioned a few times about the paid version of the report. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically, here is a slide. We have about 18 more pages. I think the our light version has something like 26 or 27 charts. The pro version has 18 more. So there's the price. We're actually going to send you an offer in your mail for everybody who has attended with a discount code that you can buy this report if you're interested. Otherwise, the free version already has a lot of data. Hey, Jose from Italian Guatemalan based in Austin. Glad you could join us. Okay, so that is me going through all the main data sets. Now I'm going to cover the key trends, yeah, what were the biggest trends in sports tech over the last year. And these are the 3 that we have highlighted. Fan experiences, I've already talked a lot about. Everything seems to be centered around the fan. Sports tech is the year of the fan, no question. Activity devices was the other big contributor. Compared to last year, the total investment reduced, but it was still the second biggest contributor of investment within this year. So within 2022, after fan experiences, hardware devices uh, are the most interesting to investors. And the third one, football tech. We got to talk about it in football year. In fact, I believe the game has just kicked off 4 o'clock on the dot. So while the World Cup kicks off and everybody's got their second screen going, I hope I don't lose too many people on this stream. But yeah, in the year of football tech, we have seen a lot of activity um, around investment in the football space. Let's get cracking. So fans and fan experiences. This is a slide that we came up with to try to quantify it. There's a lot more text and context in the report if you read it, but a couple of things I want to highlight here. If you look at investment in fan experiences in the previous 3 years, and you look at it in 2021 and 2022, huge difference, huge difference. And 21 has increased a lot versus 22, which has gone up even higher. 43% of all investment in sports tech was in fan experiences out of a 62%, which was in the total of sports tech. So a huge amount of money is going in this area. Within the sector subsector, we further divided. 55% is fan engagement, 45% is ticketing. Who are the top funded companies? Fanatics, Animoca, SeatGeek, Loot Mogul, the metaverse company I mentioned earlier, and Autograph is for NFTs. Another snapshot of how the investment has gone. Again, top funded companies, the breakup between sectors, basically repurposing of similar data, but this is also available in the pro version of the report. Big trend number 2, activity devices. Another, let's say, the second biggest area for investment in sports tech. 18% of all funding in sports tech went to activity devices. They seem to be still strong. If you look at the year-on-year comparison, as I showed you in the sector 12-month chart, it's pretty even. In fact, we project that activity might just go higher, but that's with a projection, so we shall see. But basically, hardware devices. Now, but here the question is, what types of hardware devices? And if you look at the top 5 funded companies, you'll see a spread. You'll see iFit, which is B2B fitness, Therabody, which is personal recovery devices, those massage guns and stuff, Hydro, which is, let's say, a different format of those big box personal fitness connected fitness devices, which can go into your home, Putt Shack, which is like you can't really call it a device, it's more an experience, but it's hardware, so we kind of put it here. But these are like venues where it's all about engaging the fan and trying to give the athlete plus fan a really cool experience. And Kinexon, again, activity devices measuring what athletes are doing. So wide range of devices in the top 5, and you'll actually see that in the top 10 across the list. It wasn't a particular area. For example, in 21 and the end of 2020, we saw a huge amount of investment go into personal connected fitness devices like your Pelotons and mirrors, tempos, and tonals, like all these big box devices. They got a lot of attention. Next up, the snapshot, which you can see in the pro version again. Lastly, from the trend side, I want to talk about football tech. And this was an interesting one for in a World Cup year. We were curious to see the correlation between what will happen. And you can see again, look at the previous 3 years in 2018, 19, and 20. Look at 21 and 22. So as sports tech was booming, so did football as a sport. We believe alongside fitness, it is the biggest contributor. Well, fitness also is a wide segment, so it's worth highlighting football. That's number 1. Number 2, I want to show you this chart, which is, sorry, the funding per sector, right? Fans and content. 82% of all investment in football tech was for the fans. I cannot say this enough. It is clear that fans are the ones that are attracting the most attention when it comes to sports tech investors. This is the area that everybody is looking at. So with that said, anybody give me an update? Have there been any goals in the games yet? I'm checking on my trusty, of course, One Football app, and it looks, oh yeah, there is. Morocco scored. Hakim Ziyech. Okay, 1-0 there. And Belgium, Croatia is still 0-0. Okay, there's your quick World Cup update as well. Last section that I'm going to finish with is the investor ecosystem. There you go, guys. These are the people, the funds, the decision makers. This is where a lot of that money, not all of it, but a lot of the money that we're seeing in sports tech, this is where it comes from. We have listed all the investors, the SportsTech dedicated, I should say, because as I mentioned, there are a lot of other non-endemic funds, people like Axel and Sequoia and SoftBank. And well, SoftBank not as active this year. The Vision Fund hasn't gone so well for them. But these are the people who are investing in sports tech. We've seen a lot more let's say, sports tech endemic funds, the general funds investing in sports tech. They've also seen the emergence of sports tech dedicated funds. I'll give you a few examples. KB Partners, they just last week, we covered this on our Sports Tech X weekly show. They just announced round two of their fund, which is a $100 million round two. Will Ventures announced a $150 million round two of fund two. Their first fund was, I believe, 30 million. So they've grown from 30 million fund to 150 million fund. Goes to show that they are quite bullish. Sixers Innovation Lab launched their own fund, it was an innovation lab. They've come out to say that they were going to operate as a fund as well. We had EP Golf Ventures, which is a partnership between Elysian Park and the PGA Tour. They've come out with a fund. Who else? In Europe, there have been a few. We have seen the Dutch Sports Tech Fund, which was active last year. They've come up and been much more active this year. Apex Capital, based out of Portugal, they have been super active in 22. 20 Ventures, another fund based out of Istanbul that is becoming more active. Venture Rock, a new fund, $75 million. We actually had Danny on the podcast. Yeah, actually, Santiago, I'm really sorry. The image is not clear. I guess you have to download the report. That's the best I can suggest. I try to get as high res as possible. Maybe if you zoom, full screen it, or yeah, I think best shot is just download the report. You will get all of the names and locations and all the details. Much better there. My apologies, Santiago, that the image is not clear. I have a question from Michael as well. Michael asks, any insight into investment in mental sports tech, meaning the mental fitness aspect of sport as opposed to physical tracking analysis sports tech? I don't know if she's still here, but maybe Faye can shed some light on that particular topic. Somebody that Faye's a dear friend of us at Sports Tech X. We've actually worked together on a project on this topic. And what I can say, Michael, is that, yeah, there is definitely an increasing amount of interest in developing cognitive skills for athletes, either at a personal level or for teams. So anything which helps the athlete map activity, develop, let's say, decision-making skills, or other attributes which can help them, or even as just to be more calm, be more relaxed, meditation, etc. This is a super interesting and fast-growing area, which is mental health and mental faculty management. Let's say, I'm not sure that's the best term. I think cognitive enhancement is another good way to put it. But yeah, I don't have any specific subsector it comes into, because on our let's say framework, we consider it as before or after the activity, which is basically part of recovery. But yeah, there are quite a few solutions, and it's a fast growing space. All right, guys, I've taken about 40 minutes and I'm pretty much done. I mean, I wanted to try to keep this quick and keep this light, and also have you guys go off and watch the football in time. Santiago asks, is the link to download correct? sportstechx.com/GSTVCR. Yes, it is. I hope there's no problem, but yeah, very much. The link is correct. You can download the report from there. If anybody has any questions, any thoughts, yeah, like I said, we're experimenting with a new platform, this one, which is Restream, which is pushing this live to LinkedIn and YouTube. You can also join me for our actual live show, which happens every week. our STX Weekly, where I go through the top 5 news of the week. I can tell you this week we're actually going to cover um, a investment by 777 partners into Hertha Berlin, a German football club, and they're in talks to acquire um, Hertha Berlin. It's a really interesting deal because they're acquiring a majority ownership, but not a majority of voting rights, because Germany has a famous 50+1 rule. Um, Anirudh asks, fantasy gaming hype doesn't seem to be the same for next year. Um, I'm not so sure I would agree there, Anirudh. There is, I don't know if you're coming specifically about the India market. The India market has been super developed and super hyped, right? For people who don't know, Dream 11, Dream Capital is the main fantasy player in India. I think last I saw their numbers, they have about 140 million users, 140 million fantasy gamers, um, right? So it's a big, big company. They've raised over $1 billion in funding just last year. After that, there are companies like Mobile Premier League, Winzo Games, Hala Play, etc., which are, let's say, the gap is quite big in India. So it's like the leader has taken the market in a lot of ways. There is competition, but the leader is very clear. But Anirudh, in other markets, Brazil, Japan, as I mentioned, the USA, of course, all the markets that are legalizing sports betting, their fantasy sports is still very relevant. And these are markets that actually I know Indian companies are either looking at to acquire, to set up presence, or just find another partner that through which they can enter. So fantasy as a segment in sports is still a very, very interesting segment. Thank you, Santiago. Thanks for everything to you as well. William says the link works. Thank you, William. Appreciate that. Variables is still key, but the shiny object in 22 and 23 is fan experience. Bang on the head. Ashley asks, Rowan, is there a pro version that gives us information on which funds invest specific to football and soccer? Well, let me answer this way, Ashley. The pro report actually has a slide which breaks down investments by funds and investors. So which funds have been the most active. But it doesn't have a slide specific to investors on football. What I can say though is recently there was a fund which was dedicated to football called Playtime. Playtime is a US based fund run by a guy named Razmig, and also player that you might have heard of, a certain Argentinian legend. Yeah, this is Leo Messi's fund. They haven't disclosed a corpus, like what is the total value of the fund, but they are clearly a football dedicated fund, the first football dedicated fund that I know of. They were in the slide that you, well, it was a bit blurry, but yeah, they made their announcement, I believe, a couple of months ago. So they're the one football dedicated fund that I know of, but a lot of companies are investing in football. Ayal asks, it looks like there's a drop in fan investments in fans platforms, but I would expect the levels not to, even though fans are returning to stadiums. If you mean content platforms, Ayal, I think that's what you're referring to. Um, yeah, interesting. It is a good point. So we've seen streaming um, platforms not become as attractive. It seems that engagement is more important than streaming. I don't think that's a connection to the return to stadium things because we have seen sports rights like DAZN had a big acquisition, 11 Sports had a big acquisition. So companies which have rights are still super valuable. But this is a game of big players now. It's not a game of the startups. What we have seen in solutions for streaming, which we kind of put in fan engagement because it's about engaging the fan. So companies like Beyond Sports, which got acquired by Sony, what do they do? I mentioned earlier, they basically help you animate your live stream. So you can watch your football game in an animated format. Companies like Immersive.io is a French company which helps you take your second screen and you can basically place it over the TV or in stadium. You can also do it in the stadium and you can start interacting on your phone with the stream. So basically creating an AR experience on your phone. So these kind of interactive tools which sit above the stream are getting really valuable rather than just the stream itself. Ashwin asks, is the list of VCs shown at the end available in the light version, or is it the paid version? No, Ashwin, that is already in the light version. Download it from the link that you see below. What we also have, I can direct you to, is our database, sportstechdb.com, where you also have this big list. I think it's about 90 investors that we have listed in sportstechdb.com. Anirudh asks, isn't it because betting is illegal? If betting is allowed, it will be dead. Actually, no. Anirudh is still talking about fantasy. Anirudh, there is huge amounts of data to suggest that as betting ecosystems, for betting ecosystems to thrive, they need free-to-play games, which help become the gateway for sports betting applications. So sports betting companies will pay a lot of money, to companies in the free-to-play or fantasy space where you're playing just for fun or playing also for money. Let's say what are the different gray areas and how you segment it. But even a fantasy game, which is not for money at all, is still super attractive in a market where betting has been legalized, because that becomes the gateway drug, you can argue, for betting companies, and that's how betting companies will bring people in. So in markets where betting is legalized, sports games become super attractive to investors. I hope that answers your question. Europe, Luca says Europe seems to be behind other regions. Could you elaborate on this reasons, factors? Great question, Luca. We talk about this every year in our sports tech VC, in our ecosystem reports. Europe has a great base. There are lots of accelerator programs, lots of incubator programs. It's a good place to get your early funding. Excuse me. It's a good place to get your early funding. Oh, sorry about that. What's suffering? Oh, I'm just gonna mute this. Ooh, sorry guys. Coming back to Luca's answer, Europe is a great place to get your early stage funding, but later stage funding, it gets complicated. There aren't as many funds. If you saw that slide, which shows the investors, you see maybe there are 10 in Europe versus how many in the US, and also the size of funds and deal making in the US and in Asia is much bigger. Europe, the ticket sizes are much smaller. What that also means is that Europe, there aren't as many unicorns, there isn't as much growth capital in Europe. This is another issue that we find. Michael asks about soccer. I don't know if you're talking about the a game update, but I can tell you that Belgium-Croatia still is 0-0, and Morocco-Canada is still 1-0 Morocco. Thanks for the information. Ayal, you're talking about engagement. I try to address your point, Ayal, which is that solutions which provide engagement are super interesting. Tech developments focusing on player mental health in football. Abhinav, I actually addressed the question on mental health on football earlier, well, in sports in general earlier, in football specifically. Yeah, there are a few. There are especially VR based, B Soccer. There is, I think, one in Barcelona, Soccer World, I think it's called, where you use VR glasses to help develop decision making in football. So basically, you use VR to create match scenarios with when you put in them, then you can improve your decision making. If you're talking about mental health, like meditation and stuff, again, that's not. I mean, I believe I saw one for tennis specifically. I have not seen any for mental health, like meditation for football that I can remember. Maybe Rishabh or Vishnu from the team or anybody else, if you've seen one, then feel free to drop it in the chat. Okay, guys, that I believe is it from my end. Last plug for anybody else who hasn't either downloaded the report or maybe is interested in the pro version. We are going to send you a link with a discount code to buy it. But maybe you'll find it interesting, maybe you won't. Either ways, we hope to hear from you soon. That is it from me, guys. Let me know in the chat how was the stream okay? Was there any problems? Thor asks, what was it for tennis? It's a company called Got It. I think it's GOT.IT. Got It Tennis, something like that. If you look for that, it's a US based company. Thanks, Abhinav. Thanks, John. Thanks everybody for joining. If you need to reach out to me, there's my email. You can always find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, let's go into the game and let's see how Morocco and Canada are doing. Yeah, they're doing okay. Yeah, I'm hoping Croatia goes through. Thanks, Michael. Ayal, glad the stream worked out well. Yeah, be in touch and see you guys soon. If you want to join me in about 40 minutes or so for a live show that goes live at 5 o'clock European CET, where we'll cover the top news in sports tech for the week. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.